everyone, welcome to episode 4 of Please Be Serious, my chat show on YouTube. It happens every week around Monday or Tuesday. So today is a very interesting topic. I've called it cross-border comedy because when the pandemic started and all the live gigs shut down, I was fortunate enough to start doing gigs across the world. So I've invited a few people I've met and I've done gigs with over the last year and a half. We're going to be discussing how comedy works in our various countries and whether we all face the same issues. All those who are logging in, please feel free to ask questions and we're going to be answering them live. I think we already have one comment. We have Raza Gabrani saying hello. Hello, Raza. I'm going to be starting to introduce my panelists. So they're going to tell you a little bit more about themselves. All right. So let's start with Kyle Davies. Hello, Kyle.
Hi, Kajol. How are you?
I'm fine. And could you tell us where you're logging in from?
I'm logging in from South Wales in the UK.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, I'll come to you again. Let me introduce my next panelist. Hello, Carly.
Hello.
So Carly Blair is originally American, but now in, yes, where are you right now?
I'm in Amsterdam in the Netherlands.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, and I've got Tanveer Arora, who might look very homely, but he is not in our shores right now. Where are you right now, Tanveer?
I'm in Texas in the US.
Okay, so Tanveer is in Texas. And
Right.
we finally got Mick Monkhouse in the house.
Here I am, yeah. You've been
Michael
waiting.
Monkhouse. Michael
Not
Monkhouse,
at
where are you
all,
logging in
not at
from?
all. Hmm?
Where are you logging in from?
My computer.
All right.
Yeah,
And there is your
technically I'm in Rome, but it always cracks me up when people say all the way from Rome because this is Zoom, so I might as well be in this fucking room for you. All the way from Rome,
all the way from Rome.
Yeah. Comedians are worse. It's like, say, what did you do at the weekend? Oh, I did a show in Rome. Like, no, you didn't. You were sitting in your fucking room. Fuck off,
Okay, yes, Michael bringing us to a good start. All right, I'm going to be
This is
asking
me at my best. I'm making an effort.
Yes, that is you at your best. Okay, I'm going to be asking each of my panelists. While we are missing Abbas, Abbas should be coming in shortly. He's having a few technical difficulties. So I'm going to be introducing each of them and asking them to tell me how long they've been doing comedy and which countries and where they performed. So let's start with you, Kyle. Kyle, tell us a bit about how long you've been doing comedy, where you performed, etc.
So I started comedy just over 3 months ago.
Oh, okay.
Oh, 3 years ago.
3 years.
Yeah. Sorry, stage fright. Yeah, so I did a comedy course just before my 40th birthday as a thing to, I wanted to try. And I've sort of gigged a lot around South Wales. And then to make Michael happy, then in my living room a lot.
I do a lot in my living room as well, but not just comedy.
With Zoom gigs sort of in America, Amsterdam, France. And I recently did my first live gigs in London, so that was quite exciting. So yeah.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you. Carly, tell us a bit about yourself. You're muted.
Clearly not a seasoned Zoom comedian. So like Kyle, I also got started in stand-up via a course. I had been doing improv classes for a while, and then basically we ran out of classes at the entity where I was taking improv courses, and I thought, well, now what? Now I realize I like to be on stage. Got to find some other way to do that. And so I took a stand-up class kind of on a whim and kind of immediately realized, like, oh, I like this 1,000 times more than improv. But fuck improv, I do stand-up now. So that was like 2.5 years ago that I did my first show at the end of my course, and I was completely hooked. And since then, I've done over 100 shows. I've performed all around the Netherlands, in Belgium, in Germany, recently in the UK for the first time, and then also in my hometown of Phoenix, Arizona in the US.
Okay. And is language a problem? Or do you speak languages fluently?
So I speak Dutch, but I have yet to perform in Dutch. I do occasionally use some Dutch words in my jokes when I'm doing shows in the Netherlands or in Belgium. But yeah, no, I mean, the level of English in the Netherlands is very high. So probably there's been cases where my set was better understood by Dutch people than people in the UK. So depending on the people.
All right.
Yeah, no, Dutch people speak pretty exquisite English. So I think if you run into any issue, it's more about cultural differences than them not understanding the words. So.
All right. All right. Okay. We're going to come back to that. Tanveer,
Hey,
Tanveer, you're a Mumbai boy, right?
I am.
Okay.
Rather, I was. I'm a Texas boy now.
Tell us about yourself.
Can you see the cowboy hat on me? All right. Now, all right. I've been in comedy for like 7 years. Much like Kyle and Carly, it did start with the comedy course. I was in Vegas, and I was about to hit my 30th birthday, just like Kyle, right? And I was like, I got to do something with my life. And my wife actually signed me up for this class. I woke up in the morning and she's like, this is what I'm going to do. She decided it for me, just like any other thing in my life, right? She decided that I'm going to do comedy, and I haven't looked back since. But I've done a lot of shows in US. Texas is my hometown. I've done a lot of shows here. Austin, Houston, Dallas. Done New York. I've done Chicago, Nashville. I've done Phoenix, but not Arizona. Phoenix Mills in Mumbai. I've done that.
Check it. How did you do Phoenix Mills in Mumbai when we haven't got a spot here?
Because when you come from outside, they treat you special. They treat you real good. So I've done most of the clubs in Mumbai. Yeah, you just get booked like that. But I've also done on my last trip right before COVID. I was in Japan, and I'm so sure I got COVID from there. But I did Osaka and Tokyo, and that was pretty cool.
In English? English
In
content
English, yeah, English content. There's English shows there, and there's an audience that I understood. And interestingly, how Carly was talking about Dutch comedy, a lot of times I've tried to do Hindi comedy. It doesn't go well for me. For some reason, it doesn't go well.
Hindi comedy in India or in
Hindi
US?
comedy in India, even in US, I would say it doesn't. Oh, I worked with Amin Tandon once, and I opened for him, and I did it entirely in Hindi, and he comes up to me and he goes, "Beta, just stick to English, okay?"
Okay, we're going to find out why. Let me first go over to Monkhouse. Michael
All right.
Monkhouse, tell us about you.
Hello, how you doing?
Hello.
You all right?
Yes, we're all doing all right.
Good.
I'm waiting to hear about you, your comedy career.
About me? What, you don't know enough already? My name is Michael Munkowski, Michele Convento, if you're on Google Translate. I've been doing comedy for about 10 years now, and I'm still shit. Thing is, though, that if you do comedy for 10 years in Rome, where I live, it's not like comedy 10 years in London, you know, because if you live in somewhere like London or New York, you can do comedy practically every night. Whereas out in Rome, you know, you're lucky to get one opportunity a month. So it's a very different thing. I would say I first started doing comedy when I was at Cambridge University, and I was pretty shit. And I did one show where I got booed off stage, and I said I'm never doing this again. Well, it was partly my fault because, you know, I'm kind of bitten off more than I could chew. And then there was a comedy show out here in Rome, Rome's Comedy Club, great name. And I think it's interesting what you said before. I think it was my girlfriend who encouraged me to do it, because she said, you know, you're such a miserable bastard. You're always moaning that there's nothing to do. Finally, there's something to do and you're not participating. So get up and do it, you lazy bastard. So I did it, and I survived. You know, I'm still here technically, and it was a very slow thing. I mean, it took me literally years, but now I quite enjoy doing it, and I look forward to it. I think the thing about comedy is you should look at it as a party, as a night out, rather than as a school exam. which is how most people view it. Oh God, I've got to do this. It's horrible.
Very true.
What happens if people don't laugh? And I think when you start enjoying it, you can see how much fun I'm having now because I'm English. This is the maximum enthusiasm. This is me having an orgasm, you know. It's my wife having an orgasm.
All right.
No, but it's all right. You know, I'm getting used to it. Slowly I've kind of got used to my persona and my way of doing comedy, and I've started to enjoy it. So it's a good thing.
Okay. I'm going to come back to you. And finally, let me introduce my co-host on Thirst Trap, Abbas Momin, who is as Mumbai born as I am. Abbas, tell us about your comedy career. I think you also started with improv, did you not?
Yeah, I mean, I was interested in improv also, but I think I don't know if Tanveer, what year did you move to the US?
2009.
2009. Okay, so 2010. We in Mumbai, the Comedy Store came to Mumbai, which is the Phoenix that Tanveer was talking about. So I think that was really our first exposure to any kind of club comedy, at least in India, right? Before this, we were all used to mimicry artists and so on and so forth. But that was the first time that we were watching stand-up, improv, even some sketch comedy. So I think I was really enamored by that place and the people who were performing there. So I wanted to do everything. I wanted to do improv. I wanted to do stand-up, and yeah, I took a couple of improv workshops, and then the Indian comedy community was so contained that a lot of people did both improv as well as stand-up. So there was a sort of overlap there. But yes, I mean, in stand-up, you get all the attention and you get to sort of own the stage. So obviously, I was like, rather than make the other person look good in improv, I want all the attention. So I'd rather go to improv is too nice. Everybody's like, it's yes and you have to make the other person look good. And I'm like, I want to be mean and I want all the attention. So they're like, that's stand-up over there. So yeah. So that's how 2012 is the first time I went up on stage. So yeah, almost 10 years ago. Yeah.
Okay. Now we have some comments coming in. Aks is like Hola Kajal, hello. And then there is Jay who's like Angrezo ka welcome. Okay. Now in India we call foreigners Angres because I think that translates to people who speak English. I don't think it translates to more than that. Am I right, Abbas?
If you want to be even more technical, it's white-skinned people. So right, so someone from Africa.
Yeah, but Black Lives Matter now. I read it on Facebook.
Yeah, but an African would not be technically called an Angrez in India.
Yeah. I love that Black Lives Matter thing. It's like, you know what? Because before they didn't.
Well,
somebody died. Oh, he's black. Doesn't matter. No, it does. I read it on Facebook. Black Lives Matter. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, now let me start by asking the foreign comedians in the room, not Tanveer, not Abbas. What did y'all think when y'all heard that India had stand-up comedy? Were y'all surprised? What about you, Kyle?
No, I assumed, I assumed everywhere had comedy. It's kind of I saw it as an international language, I suppose, that, you know, laughter is this global thing. So yeah.
That's a very polite answer. That's a very polite answer, and I didn't expect different. All right. What about you, Kali? Were you kind of shocked? Were you kind of wondering whether we only did comedy in Hindi?
I mean, I know I'm American, but I'm not that ignorant. You guys have microphone technology in India?
No. I got asked that.
The internet's going to be big.
I got asked that on a Zoom open mic. Y'all have comedy clubs in India? I got asked that.
No. I mean, what I was originally going to say is I know several Indian men who think they're funny, so I'm not surprised that you have comedy.
Fine,
no, I mean,
Carly.
Yeah. So I was gonna say also, so I just performed with a guy from Finland the other day, and he was telling me that even in the far north of Finland, where they have really small villages, he was like, every little town you go to, fucking all of them have comedy clubs. So up in the Arctic Circle, even they're doing stand up. So if they're doing it there, then I assume they're doing it pretty much everywhere.
Fair point. What about you, Michael?
No, I think it's a good thing. I mean, like I say, I think England and America have had the monopoly on stand-up comedy, and in particular open mic. I think it's great that it's spreading around. And as I said before, when I first started doing it, I was lucky to get one show a night. Whereas with Zoom, you can do almost like there was a period I was doing on average one show a day, which is brilliant. And I don't think the language thing is. I think it's interesting what Carly said about performing in Dutch, because I do stand up in English and Italian. And I don't know about you, but when I do it in a foreign language, my Italian's great. I've been here for 20 years, so I should have picked something up, even though I'm English, I do find it much more difficult to do stand-up in a foreign language, not because I don't speak the language, but because, number one, there's a lot of wordplay that doesn't work. And number two, my reflexes are much slower, because the whole thing about stand-up is that you're not doing a script, you're talking to people. And, if something happens, if there's a technical hitch or somebody shouts something, if I'm talking in English, my reactions are, in Italian, my brain takes a while, to understand it. So I do find it much more difficult doing it in a foreign language, yeah.
Okay. Now, Abbas and I were performing to a foreign audience for the first time. And, I think I'm going to talk for myself. I spent a lot of time tanking because I just could not understand what the audience wanted from me. Okay. So I'm going to address my next question to Tanveer. Tanveer, how was it performing for a foreign audience? Did you face any barriers? Did they expect anything stereotypical from you?
Yeah. So when I started out, it was rough, right? Because back to Mick's point, my thinking was in Hindi. My jokes, my processing was in Hindi. So when it comes out, it was different. There's definitely a lag. Also, like my cultural background, I didn't have any of the pop culture references of America back then when I just started. My references was Shah Rukh Khan and all those other people. And they're like, who the fuck they are? My references was Bollywood, and they didn't care about that. Also, American words were very different. Or now we got used to it. But
explain the words part to me.
Like simple things, right? Lift, elevator, or the way you say married, just like even if my punchlines had like if it was a good joke, it was a good joke, but I pronounced it differently, it would not flow through. It would not flow through, and people would look confused. And I'm like, it's a good joke, guys. It's a great joke. I mean, come on. And then I got a lot of help from from local comics, and they trained me the accent, the words. Back to your point about what do they expect? Yes, even now, 7 years of comedy, if I go up on stage at a new place, yes, there's this underlying expectations of doing stereotypical jokes, especially because I wear the turban. I'm like, you got to address that. I cannot just go up on stage and be like, hey, I talk about my wife or talk about my dad. Yeah. I have to break the ice with this thing. I have to address this. Usually I start with, hey, my name is Abbas Momin, because they think I'm Muslim.
This is Abbas, do you want to explain that joke?
And the crowd goes wild. They're like, oh my God, he's going to rip off his mask.
Abbas, give some context to our three guests.
About
Tanveer, why don't you go ahead?
So, Carly, you would get this, right? Being an American, right? There's definitely that belief. If you see a man in a turban, he's Muslim. Do you agree with that, Carly?
So sorry, I'm doing laundry in the background, so I have like a lot of background noise. Tell me again your question louder.
So, as an average American, if you see a man in a turban, do you relate that, or do you think people would relate that to being a Muslim?
Yes. Right? Yeah, or a Muslim, or just straight to terrorist.
That's another thing. Yeah. I mean, let's handle it one thing at a time.
Let's cut to the chase.
I was being super polite. I didn't want to go there, but yeah, sure.
I'm not, again,
I
this is
like
not
how-
me. This is a typical American.
Exactly. 5 minutes ago, Kali was like, just because I'm an American, you think I'm that ignorant?
Like, I see you. I see you. I know what you're up to.
So that's exactly why right off the bat I start with most of my sets, at least in comedy, year 2, year 3 would be, hey, I'm not Muslim, and then I would get into my material.
No, but I think if the material's good, it doesn't matter.
No, it's true. Definitely
No, it's
true.
true.
I mean,
But-
I have this thing, because even now, when I speak Italian, I have a very, very strong English accent, and people know. When people look at me, they think I might be Italian, like from
Right.
Calabria, and I open my mouth. And a lot of people have told me to sort of, camp it up, the English stereotype, but I don't like that. I think it's a bit crappy.
Oh yeah.
There was a show that I did with a friend of mine who's Italian, and we had a sketch which I thought was very funny, and we performed it in front of this Italian theatre group, and they said you've got to play with the fact that you're English, do a crappy English accent in Italian, and I really hate that stuff because in Italy that kind of comedy is really popular, sort of stereotype. I'm
In
a
India too.
football fan, I'm a chav.
Yep.
I'm a housewife, and personally, I don't enjoy it. I've seen about 10, 20 comedians do it, and I don't like it. I don't think it's very intelligent.
Right.
Okay.
It's a sort of stupid stereotype, sort of in the Middle Ages of comedy. I'd like to think that we've moved on since then. Like a woman who goes on stage and makes a joke about being a housewife, or a black person goes on stage and makes a joke about being black. I think it's a bit cheesy.
Okay. Kyle, is there a difference between the audience in Wales compared to the audiences in various other parts of Britain? Because to us, we don't really know the differentiations too well. We just see all as one country. So tell us.
I suppose that's a good question. Not really. From a limited experience of doing it live, because obviously I started and then the pandemic happened, and so yeah, when I was in London the other week, it was quite similar crowds. So yeah, there's obviously local references I can get away with gigging near home. But also there's jokes that won't work closer to home, because me, for example, I got a joke saying we have one of the longest place names in the world in Wales. Llanfair Pwllgwyngyll o Gerrych Windrobl Llansilio Gogogoch. It's a train station, and the tickets from there are massive. Which works much better outside of Wales, because everyone in Wales knows the train station. So, people actually get to the punchline quicker than I do.
Yes.
But yeah, when I've played, I've done Zoom gigs in America, the first thing is having to do a gig at 3 a.m. and having to whisper my set because my wife's in bed. But also then finding certain punchlines didn't land as well as I thought they would because of the sort of the language differences, especially because I do puns and one-liners, and they are very reliant on specific understanding of words in the setup. So, but no, in the UK, I've found all audiences quite similar.
Okay. Now, Indian audiences are very expressive. I think Tanveer is going to agree with me on that. Very expressive. You're never in doubt of what they're feeling. Yeah. But when we come into a room where we have foreigners, I'm talking about the UK audience I've seen so far, not very facially expressive. Am I right? Or was that just my sense?
That's the English thing, isn't it? Just don't express anything.
Okay. But that is the normal. The audience doesn't really express too much in general.
What you mean on Zoom or live?
Just generally.
Well, I mean, it depends, doesn't it? I mean, it depends what kind of rapport you're kind of building up.
Okay. What about you? Were saying something, Heidi?
Sorry, I was going to say live is probably more expressive.
Okay.
To be fair, I've always found it difficult with Zoom as well because there's that disconnect between yourself and the audience and a bit of a delay. And also with Zoom, I think sometimes people forget they're online.
Okay.
And you can see them. If they've got the camera on, I think some people just, forget. But I think live, I've been in comedy clubs where the roof is sort of, they've raised the roof and until my set.
Okay, now coming to tanking, do any of y'all have any experiences to share where you'll have tanked really badly or been heckled on stage? Who'd like to go first?
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure everyone's got that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Michael, tell us.
I got booed off stage once.
What were you doing to get booed off stage?
No, it's a bit of a long story, but there was a show, as I said before, out in Rome. There aren't many opportunities to do open mic, and the few open mic shows that there are tend to be sort of generic open mic. They're not really for comedy, so people are there to listen to music or to chat. And when you get up and you start doing comedy, they don't even know what you're doing. They don't understand what it is. And there was one thing that I was doing. It was a bit of a touchy subject, but I was making a joke about a porn star who'd filed a complaint about sexual harassment, and I was just pointing out the irony in somebody who fucks all day and then says, "Get your hands off my body." And unfortunately, it was misinterpreted, and people thought I was like defending the sex offender. And I remember when I got to that bit in my set, the entire audience just went totally silent. And then I said, I'm pretty much done now. I'm going to fuck off. And the organizer said, "They're good. I think you should." And I got off stage, and the presenter said, "We just like to point out, even though Mick fancies himself as being a bit politically incorrect, just because a woman's in pornography doesn't mean she wants to be molested." And the entire front row gave a round of applause. And basically, I mean, I just completely misexpressed the idea I was trying to do. And I kind of understood why they took it badly. So I stopped doing that joke. It just wasn't worth the effort of explaining it every single time, So.
All right.
So it happens.
What about you, Carly? Any experiences where you've been booed off stage, heckled?
Booed off stage? No. I've only had maybe like 3 heckler experiences, and they were not negative hecklers. They were people like I got catcalled at a show once, which is not like a positive experience, but it wasn't like the guy was like, "You suck." He was like, "I'll go out with you." I was like, "All right, like you can buy me a beer after the show, but for now, shut the fuck up." Yeah, or like an audience member that so you guys, I think all have experience with this, like an audience member who kind of fancies themselves a comedian, and so they're trying to like engage you in conversation, and you're like, "I'm on stage, you're not, shut up." So I've had that a few times, but I'm getting pretty good at shutting it down. So now I kind of look forward to it. I'm like, maybe it'll happen.
How do you shut it down?
Well, I think you just have to like make fun of just the presumptuousness of being an audience member who thinks that you deserve the spotlight when obviously everybody's there to watch the person who's on stage. So yeah, just calling that out in a mean way tends to be very effective.
Actually, just sorry to interrupt, but there's a really funny story.
Tell us.
I'll shut up after this, don't I? No, but there was one comedian that I saw. It was really funny because the guy was heckling the shit out of him, and at a certain point he goes, "Well, if you think you're funnier than me, you get up on stage and do it." And the guy did get up on stage, and he did it, and he was funnier.
Oh, wow.
I think it's the worst thing could possibly happen to a comedian, you know, getting upstaged by a heckler. Because I mean, the thing about hecklers is that most of them are A, stupid, and B, drunk. So it doesn't really matter. But in this case, it was just, it was horrible.
What about you, Abbas?
So my favorite heckle story is this wasn't even a heckle. It was in the early days I had started doing stand-up. And I always wanted to do audience interaction. And I always wanted to, I'd seen all these comics talk to a heckler and put him down and get all the applause. So I was doing my bit and there was a very bored lady right in the front row and she was on her phone. So I thought, okay, this is my moment. I'll address this. She'll say something dumb and I'll put her down and I'll get applause. So I just stopped my set. I looked at the woman and I was like, excuse me, ma'am, there's a show going on. Who are you texting? And without looking up, while texting, she just said, someone who's a lot funnier than you. I was like, I don't have to come back to that. And I couldn't even go back to my set because what am I going to do? As I was saying. So yeah, that was the day when I realized I need to go in with a strategy and not just expect the person to say something dumb, because that person has opinions on their mind which they are not afraid to express.
Right.
So yeah, that has stuck with me to this day, even though it happened like some 7-8 years ago. But yeah, okay. That still hurts.
Tanveer, what about you?
So I've had a lot of heckler experiences, just like Mike said, drunk people. But I was thrown out of a show, like not even booed. I was escorted out of the premises of the show. So this was year one of comedy. I wasn't that good at it. I just had this 10 minutes of material that I wrote, and no matter what, if this show is going well or not, I would do those 10 minutes, right? And this was a private show booked by an Indian audience, like semi-Indian audience. And they were really sensitive, really conservative. And most of my punchlines were, I hate Indians. I hate Indians. So like the rule about 15, you need to get a laugh every 15 seconds. Every 15 seconds, I would say, I hate Indians. And then it didn't go up. It just did not go. They cut off my mic at 6 minutes. And they literally escorted me out of the building. And they said, in my car, and they said, you need to leave. Right now.
Ouch. So, okay, I've never been escorted out. I've had to run out of a bar. I've never been escorted out.
It didn't kick in. What really happened when I got in the car, I called my wife and I was like, holy shit, this is what happened. They could probably murdered me there.
So basically, Indians in our country and outside our country are all intolerant.
Pretty much. Now there's this two types. Good point though. Indians in India, and then the older Indian folks here are pretty much the same. The younger generations are different.
Yeah.
But they don't pay that much. The older guys do. So.
We're going to discuss political comedy in a bit. I'll just come to Kyle. Kyle, have you got a negative response from the audience?
I think I'm quite lucky because I do puns. If once a joke finishes, hopefully there's a laugh, and then it's straight on to the next one. So there's not much time to interject. So yeah, touch wood. I've got a gig tonight now, and I know I'm going to get heckled. I've brought it on myself, but no. When I used to play music in bands, a gig we had, they told us to stop playing after 15 minutes because the boxing was on the telly. So yeah, that was quite negative. Especially because we were playing Eye of the Tiger at the time, and it was the theme from Rocky, so you would have thought you would have loved it. Yeah. It was like, can you stop for the next 90 minutes? So yeah. But no, luckily, touch wood in comedy, no. It's been good.
Okay. So I have had to run out of a venue once because I was doing a political joke, and someone in the bar got up and said, that chief minister you're joking about, he's my brother. Okay. Now, in India, this is the political scenario right now. it's a little dangerous doing political comedy. Dangerous for me, very dangerous for Abbas, right? Because there is a religious atmosphere.
Yeah, can't even go to the US because they just think I'm a terrorist over there.
Yeah.
It depends on where you go. There are large non-white communities in different places. Don't go to Alabama.
Okay. Now, how is doing political comedy where everyone is from? What about you, Carly? How are you? Are there any restrictions at all?
You asked me, right?
Yes.
Oh no, you didn't. Okay. I don't really do political humor, to be honest, because all my stuff is very personal, and I feel like I wouldn't do jokes about. I'm sure if I did jokes about Dutch politics, all the Dutch people would be like, "She's an idiot. Like she don't know what she's talking about." And if I would do American stuff, I feel like I would just do a lot of stuff that's already been done because there's so many fantastic late night talk show hosts with staffs of writers, like 10 each, 20 each. So, like, I mean, you watch between those shows and you'll see overlap in their jokes because everybody thinks of the same shit. So, I don't touch politics except for occasionally connecting Trump to my family since I have a bunch of Trump voters in my family. But then so it might be dangerous for me in that sense. Might lose out my inheritance at some point. But that's the only danger I face connected to political humor right now.
Okay, but no litigations or jail terms, or it doesn't go that far.
I doubt. I mean, it's the Netherlands is a very high democracy country, and the U.S. is surprisingly free speech is quite heavily protected in the U.S. So you're more in trouble, or you're more likely to get canceled than get litigated against these days.
Okay.
So I don't worry about it.
Okay. What about you, Tanveer? Do you touch on politics at all?
I personally don't. I'm like Carly. I don't have any inclination towards politics. Most of my material is just personal. But I've seen a lot of comics do political material. And back to what Carly said, there's freedom of speech. You can say whatever the hell you want, even if it's a complete white audience. Even if it's a Republican audience, you can say fuck Trump and get away with it, and nothing's gonna happen to you. At the max, you may get shot in Texas. That's it.
Has that ever happened? Has anything close to that ever happened?
There's been fist fights, but that's just because people have been drunk. Nothing to do nothing legally, no legal action. But yeah, just people being crazy. That's it.
I feel like 6 months or maybe last year, there was a comic who got dragged off stage and like beat up by a heckler. It was a famous comic, but I can't think of who it is at the moment. Someone who it wasn't surprising that it would happen to.
Probably.
Like, yeah, that guy's an asshole. That checks out.
Getting beat up if you're not funny, I think is totally justified. But getting beat up because you
Well, at least you
spoke
got a
about
reaction, you know. I mean, you're making people react in some way. It's always a good thing.
That's true.
Wow, so we know we're opposites on the freedom of speech.
Okay. Who wants to go? Who wants to
I have a take on that. So you know how you asked the foreign comedians if they've ever been booed off stage. I mean, the more I think of it, the concept of booing is not there in India, right? Like if I cracked a joke, you didn't like it, and you booed me off stage, fine, I'll take it. In India, we go to the extreme. We want to threaten the comedian and sort of make sure that they never perform again. Yeah. So I'd much rather be booed off stage than the gentleman, like you said, who stood up and was like, you know, the person you're talking about is my brother. Had he just, with the friends he was with, let's just boo this comedian off stage and, you know, whatever. Next time he sees you perform somewhere, he's like, she's a very unfunny comedian. If it stops there, sure, that's your right as a consumer of comedy to be like, yeah, I think you're unfunny. But yeah, the unfortunate thing is that we, or rather the people in power, want to go to the extent of showing their power by not letting you perform if you offend their sensibilities. That's a problem.
Yeah, and that's a big problem right now.
Yeah.
What about you, Michael?
Well, no, I was going to say, I mean, the thing about politics in Italy, it's such a farce anyway, that anything you say, they're going to agree with. So it's not really... Well, I mean, it's all been such a joke. You know, I used to have a joke, which was, what's the difference between COVID and Berlusconi? COVID might go away. You know, and when you make the other one that I liked was Berlusconi. It's absolutely true. Berlusconi said, "At this point in life, all I want is food, place to sleep, and regular sex." So why is he so desperate to stay out of prison? You know?
Okay.
And the thing about these jokes is that everybody agrees with them. They're not controversial. They're not controversial because everybody is on your side. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in someone like England, where it's all a bit more delicate. I don't know. So, like I said, I talk about politics because I find it very, very interesting, and I also think it's a great source of comedy material. There's so many wonderful, fascinating things going on. But I wouldn't say it's controversial because the audience is bound to be on your side because there's only one side to be on if you've got half a brain. It's not a problem for me.
Okay. And Kyle, what about you? I know you don't do too much political humor, but is it easy to do in UK?
Yeah, much like Carly was saying, I love watching political comedy. I'm on YouTube most mornings, eating my breakfast and watching the late night American shows, and we have quite political comedy TV shows here. So yeah, but I don't do it myself. Only because, again, doing puns, it's reliant on people having a knowledge of the topic. Yeah, but yeah, I've been in comedy clubs where political humor has been used. It's on telly here or TV. So yeah, no, I don't think I've
No
ever seen it.
violence.
No.
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 Okay. Now I'm going to come to a very important question. Where in a career in your country does the money start coming in? At what point?
That's
This will be short
the
segment.
funniest question so far.
This is where we need the call. Let's just that's it.
Okay, let's start with Tanveer. Why don't you start?
Jesus. Or Allah. Well, anyways. So I think as compared, and I'm just trying to compare it with Indian comedy, but US comedy has been established for a long time, right? So there is this natural path of your career, like especially club, right? It goes with the host, feature, headliner. That's the club way to do it. The money starts coming when you actually get booked at a club. So
Okay.
if you have, and it's slow when you're a host, increases when you're a feature, definitely good as a headliner. Also,
give us some sort of an idea in terms of rupees. What kind of money would you be looking at?
what's the conversion rate? I don't know, but
At this point, there's a tab on Kajol's laptop which is applying for a US visa. And she just wants
Just give us an idea. Like,
So,
what would you be paid as a feature?
as a feature, you probably get paid at least, I would say, $500 per show.
That comes to about
I don't know.
40,
You do the math.
40K?
40K a show.
40,000?
60 more than I get.
8, 5,
All right,
40, right?
don't quote me on this, but okay.
But Tanveer, so let's say do the comics performing in cities like LA and New York make more money than Texas?
Probably, yes. But also, it's tougher to break into the clubs there. There's so many of them, and then when you initially start off in New York, especially, you have to pay to do open mics. You don't have to pay in Texas, right? So all that.
How much would you pay?
Why are you
to do
acting surprised, Kajol?
How much do you pay to do an open mic?
Is this like are you actually? It feels so much like an interview. Like
In New York right now, Kajol. Can you open the curtains, please?
Yeah, exactly. I think $5 or $10 to do an open mic.
That's $800, Kajol. Would you pay $800 to perform at an open
But here's the thing: when I did shows in New York, and this is year 1 or 2 of comedy, there was bringer shows, so you had to get 4 people to do a 5-minute spot.
I fucking hate those bringer
But the
shows.
tickets were $50 each.
Yeah.
Oh, the tickets
I
are
fucking hate
$50.
that shit.
Who pays
$50 tickets.
Who
My friends paid.
$50 to
My
see an
friends.
open
Oh
mic?
man, I hope you're still friends with them, Tanveer. They were the keepers.
But no, I think the money is in private shows, corporate gigs. Yeah, that's where the money is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I wanted to ask you, Tanveer. So you just mentioned there was this Indian person who
Event.
hired you to perform at an Indian event, right?
Yeah.
So are we talking about, let's say they act, and this is just conjecture. I'm not commenting on your comedy, but let's just say they wanted to go for Hassan Minhaj, and they were like, no, we can't afford Hassan Minhaj. What's the rung lower than that? And they were like, I don't know, Kumail Nanjian. And they were like, no, Kumail Nanjian is even more expensive. And then go down like Tanveer Arora has been doing clubs. Let's hire him. Is that how it goes?
That's pretty much the thought process. Yeah, you're actually exactly right. You're exactly right. Let's start with the best. We can't afford. We can't even reach Kumail. He won't answer.
Yeah.
Let's go with Hassan. Okay, he's answering, but he's charging like $20,000. Keep going,
Right.
keep going, and that's how it is.
Okay. Now that we've established that, okay, by the way, featured act meaning how many minutes is the spot approx?
25 to 30.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Let me ask Michael. What is the payment scene in Italy?
What's my sorry?
What's the payment scene in Italy?
The payment scene, absolutely fuck all, technically speaking. I've never made any money whatsoever. If I've made money, it's been money to get one beer after the show. Really, the funny thing is, I actually prefer not to get paid. Or I prefer to get paid money I could actually do something with, because the psychology is very strange. There was a mate, the guy that I told you about before, we used to have our show and we dragged it round. And the idea was we wouldn't make any money. We just do it for fun. And we had a lot of fun doing it. And there was one place where they said, no, we're going to pay. We're going to pay you. And we said, no, it doesn't matter. We're going to pay you anyway, because we believe in the art. We believe all this kind of crap they give us, you know. And at the end of the fucking show, you know, when they took like 50% for the theatre, 20% for this, 25% for this, I think we walked home with about £2 in our pockets. Yeah. And at this point, but the psychology is strange. I prefer not to get paid, because if you don't get paid, you think this is fun. And if somebody says we're going to pay you and they give you something derisory like that, you look back and instead of looking back on all those hours of rehearsals as fun, you look at it as a piss take.
I get you. I get you.
So I'd rather get paid something worthwhile or not get paid at all, you know. And this mate of mine that we did the show with, I wrote most of the material. He translated it. He did a lot of the publicity. And we had a rule from the start, which was any payment would be split 50-50. Because if you're in a relationship and you start arguing about this and that, the relationship's buggered, technically speaking. And so we decided that any money we made would be split 50-50. And it wasn't a problem because we never made any fucking money anyway. So
Right.
if I was doing this for a living, I wouldn't be here. I'd be dead. You know, I've got a job. This is extra money.
I think we've all got jobs.
need a
Wait,
job.
let's come to Carly. Carly, what about you? When does money start coming? Does it start coming in?
Well, so as I said at the top of the show, I haven't been doing comedy for that long, so I wouldn't say, I don't know where the ceiling is in terms of how much money people get paid. And so an interesting difference, I think, from what some other people have going on is that here in the Netherlands, there's, of course, the Dutch comedy scene or comedy cabaret scene, which is a completely different universe. And that's, I think, the guys at the top there who are playing theaters with hundreds of people, 500 people, those dudes are making money. Like the headliner, I'm sure, is making at least a few €100 a night on a show. But yeah, the English language comedy scene in the Netherlands is still quite nascent. So it's only been maybe in the last 5 years that it went from, one person doing a show in, Amsterdam to now venues and shows kind of popping up like mushrooms all over the place. In terms of myself getting paid, I got paid within the first 6 months of starting to do comedy. And I've gotten paid not like every single show, but regularly, I would say. And I think that part of that is that there was kind of a collective decision made within the English speaking comedy community that not getting paid is bullshit. So we as organizers, or at least several organizers, decided, okay, even if we can only pay, 5-10 euros per person, we're going to do that insofar as we can. So like when I was running shows, I paid everybody. So the MC, the assistant, all the comics, Yeah, and then but it was funny that people were super happy about it. Like they would get 10 euros and a couple drinks and they'd be like, oh, this is super cool, da da da. And I'm like, Jesus, like we have a way to go as a scene, before, like if this is something that's, warrants excitement, then we have a way to go. But yeah, so I think you don't need to necessarily wait a long time to get paid, but it's more because it's more connected to your ability level. Like if you start closing a first half or closing a show, then and you can do that quickly, then you're gonna get paid more sooner in your career.
Okay.
I think also. Sorry to interrupt, but I think also, I think it's much more of an incentive to say, you get a free drink and a free buffet than to say you get 10 euros. Because I think if you say if you say you get 10 euros, it's a piss take. But if you say this is a night out and you get to drink and eat for free, I think that's much more of an incentive.
No, but that's one.
Fortunately, not everyone's as negative as you.
Nobody is as negative as me.
My
I'm
point being,
famous for that.
I'd love to know when I could quit my job and just do comedy full time. Is what I was trying to find out. What about you, Kyle? In the UK, when does the money start coming?
There's money involved. I've done one paid gig in the 3 years, but I've had lots of drinks.
That's what I mean. I think that's more of an incentive, free drink.
Yeah, because I don't drink alcohol, I've had lots of cola. So yeah, but there is a paid scene. But a lot of the shows that I've done are open spots at gigs where there's no entry fee, so it's a free entry for the audience. I once had a joke bought by the BBC.
Whoa! What was the joke?
How much did they pay? Don't mind me asking.
It was, they used to do a show called News Jack.
Yeah. I got one in there, and then they cut it at the last minute, the bastards.
Go on, guys.
It's completely written by the audience, and you get paid if your joke gets used. And it was around the time that equine flu was in the news, and the joke was something like, the racing industry in the UK has been decimated due to equine flu. Vets are now predicting in sort of 2 to 3 weeks' time, male horses will go down with stallion flu, which is much worse. And yeah, I got paid. So that's the most money I've made from comedy.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, no, it's interesting you say that because they do these shows on the BBC, and sometimes they buy a gag and they pay you 25 quid. I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I got
you
paid
get
25.
credit for these?
Yeah. But the problem was that they paid. They gave me a check for 25 quid, and I live in Italy. So when I went to England, I said, "Can you do anything with it?" And they said, "You've got to open a bank account for 100 quid." So, it's the principle of the thing, isn't it? It's the principle of the thing.
In India, what we have right now is we have an influencer culture. So if you manage to be popular as a comedian on Instagram and you have a certain number of followers, in India, getting a vast number of followers is not so difficult because we've got a lot of people.
Yeah.
So then you start being paid by brands, and a lot of comedians have made their careers over the lockdown with that. So that is one option. Avas and I are not.
Yeah, but I think the interesting thing is that even if you're crap as a comedian, but you know how to get followers, you consider it a success.
Yes.
And I've seen some great comedians who just are not very good with the social media, and they're ignored. And I've seen some terrible comedians, but they know how to manipulate the social media, and they're considered a success story. Yeah.
Okay.
Kajol, you've asked us a lot of questions. I have a quick one for you. Can you direct? How can you direct all those Indian folks to my Instagram?
Instagram's crap.
Okay. Can you dance, Tanveer?
Yeah.
Okay. Then start making reels, and I will direct them to you.
All right. Cool.
In India, you got to dance to make reels. Now, I'm going to come to Yes, I'm going to come to an important question, which I think is going to be between Carly and me mostly. Let's talk about the differences between male comedians and female comedians. Are they viewed differently by audiences where you are?
Ooh, so I recently, so historically, or for most of the time I performed in the Netherlands, I would have said, oh, in the Netherlands, I don't really notice a difference. And part of that is because I suddenly am very echoey.
Yes.
That's weird. Maybe I'll unplug my mic. Is that better?
Much better.
Cool. Yeah, so I didn't think for a long time it was an issue, and I think part of that is just you're performing for like expat audiences where it's very mixed and everybody's kind of. I don't understand why I'm super echoey now.
Just 1 second. Has
I
anyone got their speakers open? Okay, carry on, Carly.
la 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 la.
Go on.
Yeah, so I didn't think it mattered. I think partly it's because it's expat audiences, so everybody's a minority or whatever. So I think kind of there's not this we're a dominant unified group against you as the comedian or whatever. But recently I did a show finally in front of an all Dutch audience, and a woman came up to me after a Dutch woman came up to me after the show, and she said, "I loved your jokes. You were fantastic. I don't think the audience appreciated you as much as they should, because Dutch people don't like it when women talk about sex." And I was like, this is the first time I've ever heard that. That's so interesting, because I have had a couple times in the past where I had heavily Dutch shows and I didn't think it went over well, and I had no idea that there could be this cultural thing going on. Funny sidebar about the night when this woman spoke to me. Two of the comedians, it was a competition, two of the dudes who advanced both had jokes about being stalkers. And they were very popular and they advanced in the competition. So I was like, sorry, like I'm not allowed to talk about not fucking guys on Tinder, but these dudes are allowed to talk about being stalkers, like stalking women, and that's fine with the audience. Like, that's crazy.
I think this is a problem with audiences world over. Unless in America, it's different.
I mean, dude, America's got still pretty big misogyny issues. Depending on where you are. I mean, if you're performing for a very woke audience, then it's different. But yeah, indeed, I think everywhere there's still this issue of women. Men can do whatever they want, but women can't be sluts. Yeah, that we still have to contend with. But yeah, for the most part, I have to say, like in the Netherlands, as a female performer, I've never felt, unsafe. I've never been sexually harassed. I think we have a very warm and nice, supportive community.
I think it's Michael's mic. 1 second, I'll just mute.
Yeah, Mike, you're making me echo.
Go.
Yeah, so that's my take for now on the situation.
Okay. Yeah, I faced this as well. In India, if a woman is talking about sex, people are just uncomfortable. Abbas and I used to do a show called Thirst Trap, which was all about sex jokes. And
yeah, I was on the panel once, yes, or I was on an episode once. Yeah.
Yes, people are okay with that because they can put their cameras off and they feel that they're more secure seeing that, and yeah, no one's watching them. But okay, now I'm going to put the question to the guys. Tanveer, what about you? Do you think that there is a difference between the way the audience sees male and female comedians?
I'll agree with Carly. There are parts of America that you may see that difference, but where I am, I haven't. You're allowed to say whatever, and there's no difference between a female comedian or a comedian. Comedian is a comedian. It doesn't matter. Especially, I think it is a lot to do with me being so close to Austin, and Austin's pretty woke. So yeah, there's literally no differentiation, which is a good thing.
Okay. Kyle, what do you think? In the UK, now the reason I'm asking you is because I believe I'm quite offensive to the UK audience. I have been told. There was actually a guy who walked out of the room after I finished my set. How do you all react to women talking about sex?
Well, since I've started doing comedy, it's been a sort of reasonable 50-50 split on bills. And yeah, some of my best comedian friends are female comics who whose sets are very blue. And they're very open and candid about things, and that's, and they seem to go down really well. So yeah, I think, don't get me wrong, when I've been in sort of comedy nights before I was a comedian, and you could hear groan if someone said, and the next, because they all used to go, there's a female comedian up next, and it's like, well, you don't need to actually say
But you didn't notice.
yeah, and it's like, and then you're tucked in the audience, and but I think that's gone by the wayside now.
Okay.
Your story of the guy walking out in disgust, but I think you will always have pockets of people who will not respect a woman's right to say exactly what she wants, and
I
it's quite
know,
hard.
but the thing is, okay, now I'm gonna go to Michael.
Yeah.
Michael can do his set, which is reasonably offensive, and I can do the same set, and I think I'd be a little more offensive to the audience. Michael, what do you think? Is there a difference between a male and a female?
Well, I think it's a very interesting thing. To be honest, I think it's the other way now. I think when women talk about sex, it's funny, and when men talk about sex, it's offensive. In the sense that, if a man makes a joke about masturbation, it's like, oh, shut up. Whereas if a woman makes a joke, it's like, oh my God, that's great. That's awesome. I mean, my favorite example is, I don't know if you know, there's this English comedian, Jo Brand. She's very, very funny. And the perfect example is like, if Jo Brand, I saw this thing with Jo Brand, and there was a picture of the Pope, and she said, I shagged him, and it got a big laugh. And then when you get a male comedian like Andrew Dice Clay, who's like really misogynistic, and he talks about a woman, I shagged her, it's like, shut up, you misogynist,
I get you.
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I don't think it's a problem. I don't really care if it's a man or a woman on stage. If you're funny, you're funny, And I think, as Kyle said, when people say this is a female comedian, I think they're creating a problem where there's no need to have a problem. It's just good comedian. It's good comedian. Who cares?
I'm going to come to Abbas to wrap up this, since we're wrapping up the live now. Abbas, any last questions or comments you want to finish this
Like
off?
not regarding this, right? Like anything.
You can take this, or you can diverse, because I know what.
No, I had a question for Tanveer. So, like you said earlier on that when you started doing comedy, you were thinking in Hindi and your jokes were in English. So maybe early on that didn't work out. And then you also said that you like that whole Amit Tandon line where he's like, stick to English.
Right.
So at what point, or how have you now come to a point where you're not funny in Hindi, but you're funny in English? When you started out, you were actually thinking in Hindi and writing jokes in English. So how has that sort of
by watching
contrast happened?
By watching a lot of American shows, I've kind of Americanized myself. I think the more number of years I've spent here, the more Americanized you become, right? It's just like you, on a daily basis, you meet people, you talk to them, you understand the lingo, you get the accent, you start thinking now in English. So that's where you leave Hindi behind. And I think that was about the time where I did the Amit Tandon show, and that's why I didn't hit.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just going to pull up some comments which you've got. Raza Gabrani is a big fan. He's a big fan of Michael Monkhouse.
I got a positive comment. That's 3 more than usual. Thank you.
I think it was at the part where you were being a misogynist, so that's kind of a dubious endorsement.
He also thinks that Kyle is selecting his words carefully. Yes, they do that. They're very polite in the UK.
That's what being a punster is. Always select your words carefully.
Okay, I'm going to
Also,
wind up.
I had one last thing, Kajol. At one point, you asked, "What's the point where you can quit your day job to pursue comedy?" Right? So, a comedian in India once told me, the day you start making the same amount of money that your salary is the day that you can afford to take that risk. But that should happen for 3 months in a row, is what he said, which has never happened in my life.
True. Any last comments from anyone? Cardi?
I'll just like to add to Abbas.
Yeah.
In America, you can just quit your day job and start doing comedy because you'll get unemployment anyway. So.
Casual, just pass me that URL for the visa application. I think
I get paid in cola in my day job anyway, so you know.
What is your day job?
Well, what is my day job?
You never said what it was.
Oh, I'm a tester for cola.
You're a tester for cola.
Stick to comedy. Stick to comedy.
Kajol, I was just gonna say that if you want to quit your day job, you should probably get an agent. Seems like that's the gateway to making real money doing comedy.
That's a whole other thing of having agents and managers, which is something that India doesn't have at all.
Well, we do, but we have only one agent. We have one talent management agency. Okay, let me ask the last question. Is there nepotism in the comedy scene where you all are from?
Of course. I think that's universal. That's universal.
So you got to suck up for spots and stuff like that. That happens everywhere.
Well, in Rome, as I said before, in Rome it's all about not what you know, but who you know. And especially in Rome, where I live, there's a very small group of comedians, and they always get the opportunities. And I think a lot of them are crap. Yeah. I've seen some great comedians, but they're not friends with the right people, so they never get the breaks. It's just, but I mean, that's just the way. It's the way any job works. It's the way the whole world works, isn't it? It's not just about comedy. It's like people say, you know, you're talking about women in comedy. Why are there not more women in comedy? Why are there not more women in any job? You know, it's just the society's like that. You know, sexist society's there. You know.
I feel kind of spoiled because the South Wales comedy scene's really supportive of each other.
In Rome it's the opposite. No, in Rome it's competitive. It's very nasty. It's very insidious. You know.
We have sort of comedian comedy nights where you can try out new material and then talk about it afterwards, and people are happy to give you a sort of a 10 spot on their bill.
In Rome it's the opposite. They kind of cut you down, you know, immediately. Right. Very negative.
Okay.
The reason why we started Farm Comedy Club was to do the opposite, to give everybody opportunity. It's very rare out here in Rome.
Right.
All right. So I'm going to wind up. Thank you guys. You all have been lovely and it's been an amazing discussion. Everybody else in comments, I will be putting up their handles on the YouTube chat. And does anyone have any shows to pitch or anything coming up which you'll want to talk about right now quickly?
Just my Instagram, just followers, you know,
Okay, so I'll be putting that into the YouTube. Me personally, I've got 2 shows happening this weekend. On the 18th is my solo. On the 19th is my show with Aditi Mittal, and that is on my YouTube as well.
Good luck.
Thank you, people.
Wait! I have show.
Okay, mother. Cardi and then Abbas.
I have on Sunday. I'm doing the Sounds Proper Christmas show. Which is a virtual gig. So if you follow Sounds Proper Comedy on Facebook, then you'll see a link for that event on Sunday evening. I have no idea what time it is in India, probably 6 a.m. the following day.
1:30 in the morning in India, but Sounds Proper is the group I started doing comedy nights with, and they're lovely. Abbas, what do you say?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I was just gonna say the 18th show 1 hour special that you're doing. I'm still opening for you, right? Yes, so that.
Okay. Seema Rao was like, please do shows on Andheri. Definitely, Seema. Just let us know how many tickets you're buying, and then we will do that. We will arrange the show. Okay. Now I am definitely wrapping up because Tanveer has to go to work.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, people.
Bye-bye.
And good night.
It's great.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.